They talked a lot about becoming a global hospitality ecosystem. So not just a place to book places to stay, but a place where people can book experiences and create and curate this whole life experience on the platform.
Airbnb is essentially competing with the trust of like a Marriott. You know the quality of the Marriott when you go to check in, and everyone knows that. That's their biggest competitor, is trust of their platform. I met somebody there that had hundreds of listings in multiple markets, and he was operating at a 4.9. And I was asking him, like, how do you do that? He's like, relentless hospitality. We're obsessed with details. We're obsessed with connecting with the guests. We're obsessed with over-delivering the experience. I would invest into creating a brand-forward hospitality company that invests in unique experiences, unique properties, something that would stand out, something that is different from just heads and beds. He's like, those days are just over on Airbnb because it's not what Airbnb wants, it's what the traveler wants.
If you want to win in hospitality as we move into the future, it's not just about listings, it's about designing experiences. Quality wins, storytelling sells, and that authenticity builds trust.
Welcome to Get Paid for Your Pad, the definitive show on Airbnb hosting, featuring the best advice on how to maximize profits from your Airbnb listing, as well as real-life experiences from Airbnb hosts all over the world. Welcome.
Get paid for your pad. Get paid for your pad. Get paid for your pad.
The future of hospitality isn't just having more doors, more listings. It is about mastering quality, storytelling, and design. And we heard it straight from the source. Eric just came back from an invite-only event at Airbnb's headquarters, and that gave us a front row seat into where hospitality is heading.
I keep saying, like, it's a dream come true. Well, one, to be recognized by Airbnb, like they found our profile and reached out to us specifically. Finding Freewyld and really loving Freewyld, inviting us there, doing the tour of the headquarters, hearing directly from Brian Chesky, like being in the room with him, was just like, wow, this is crazy. It was unbelievable. It was a life-changing event.
We will do our best not to reveal anything confidential, but we want you to walk away from this episode understanding where Airbnb is headed, because they're such a major player in the short-term rental space, what pro host means in the context of Airbnb, and then how to position your business to stay ahead of the curve and ahead of the trends. They talked a lot about becoming a global hospitality ecosystem. So not just a place to book places to stay, but a place where people can book experiences and create and curate this whole life experience on the platform. Can you start there?
Obviously, Airbnb in the beginning of the year, they made a big announcement that they want to be the place for all experiences, right, around travel. Two major things that I learned at this event is, like, one, they're finally investing into pro hosts, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But two, they're all in on experiences. They still have a lot of work to do to build trust on the platform with a lot of different travelers. And, you know, it's not like Airbnb owns the space. They have competitors and all that stuff. So there's still a lot of work to be done on the short-term rental side. But they also want to start owning the experiences and service side. And what's really cool is, like, how they're marketing to travelers, how you can book an Airbnb, but then also book a Airbnb experience and book a service. And a service would be like a chef that comes to your house to cook your food, all that stuff, or a massage. So they want to be able to, whenever you travel, you're going to that platform to find all of the different experiences that you're looking for during your trip. And then what we see and how they tie in it into the pro host side is, like, they're going to start eventually incentivizing hosts to curate experiences or upsell experiences, things like that. It's very clear that they're making that move towards that side. But before we get into, like, the details of all that, I think it'd be important to kind of talk about, like, what the event is and what it was about and why they're doing that. So it was called the Airbnb Host Summit, and it was an invite only at the headquarters. And the individual who was running it, she brought up to the Airbnb team, why are we spending all this money investing in other people's events when we could have our own events and invest into our community and our people, which I thought was a genius idea. So this was the first ever Airbnb Host Summit, and it was specifically focused on what they call pro hosts, right? So anyone who is on the platform who is hosting at a pro level. There's people in there that had just a couple of listings, but they were doing it at a pro level. They had like a property management company or a brand, something like that. And then you had the biggest companies in the world in that space, right? So you had Evolve in there. Brian Egan was there. You had Sean Bruner from Avant Stay. I met a couple other CEOs that I've never heard of before that had thousands of short-term rental listings that were in the room. And it was awesome to be there. And their whole idea was to invest into this community. And they had all their executives from the different departments there doing like a 15, 20-minute talk to us of like, hey, this is what we're focused on. This is what we're learning. This is how it's going to impact your business. And then on the first day, Brian Chesky just comes running into the room and jumps up on stage and starts talking to us for 45 minutes. And we can get into that as well. But what I thought was really, really amazing was that Brian actually said that that room was worth $2 billion to Airbnb.
Wow.
So yeah, that blew everyone away. We're like, what? Like, that's insane. There was like 100 and maybe 200 people max, maybe 180 people that were in that room. And we represented $2 billion of business to Airbnb. What's up, guys? Eric here. And before we dive into this episode, I want to introduce you to our podcast sponsor, Freewyld Foundry. Freewyld Foundry is a revenue management service, white glove, high touch service for the top 1% short-term rental operators. We're currently managing over $60 million in bookings, 1,700 listings worldwide, and we are growing very, very quickly. Our RPM program is a done-for-you revenue management service, and I want to invite you, if you are a short-term rental operator that's doing $1 million or more, or maybe about 15 listings or more, head over to freewildfoundry.com and apply for one of our free revenue audit reports. This is where Jasper and the team will actually take a look at your pricing strategy, audit all of your Airbnb listings, and let you know if you're leaving money on the table. So this is free to everyone who's listening to this podcast. Head over to freewildfoundry.com and apply for your free audit report. You know, I've been a host on the Airbnb platform for probably 10 plus years. And I was sharing this with somebody at Airbnb. I remember when I first got into the industry and I started doing arbitrage and property management. And when all the regulations started coming in and challenging different cities, I would go to those hearings. And I remember the Airbnb reps asking me not to speak up about my business. And the locals didn't want me to speak up about my business of having more listings. They wanted to really just support the individual host. And it's been like that for a very long time. And this was the first time where I felt Airbnb recognizing what they call a pro host and actually investing into that community. And Brian made it really, really clear that they see pro hosts as a big part of their business and their ecosystem, and that they are actively investing into this community. And the Airbnb Host Summit was the first ever announcement and investment into that. So it was life-changing. It kind of solidified what we're doing with Freewyld and Freewyld Foundry. There were so many different like Legends X students that were there and people that have been in our sphere. I'll pass you the mic here in a second. But to me, that was amazing to see. And the amount of tools and investments that they're rolling out for pro hosts is, to me, going to be a game changer for hosts that want to start scaling or at scale and how they're going to compete on the platform.
It's such a breath of fresh air and such a cool pivot by them, because from the brand perspective, when they first got started, it was about renting out a room in your own house. And that was really what all of the messaging was geared towards. But it sounds like they're recognizing how this industry has evolved and grown up over the last decade. How long have they been around? 15 years? 10 years?
Yeah, they launched in oh man, I should know my Airbnb stats. Was it 2008? It was during Obama and McCain. So I think that was 2008. Man, I'm forgetting. It's been a long time.
I didn't hear this from you and I wasn't at the event, so I'm putting words in their mouth. But this focus on pro host, it seems like it really aligns with what they did communicate in terms of quality. And the professional hosts were the ones who are holding a really high bar, or at least should be holding a really high bar for having a strong brand ourselves, having strong systems, strong customer service, strong guest communication, and all of those things sound like they matter more and more and more to Airbnb. And I think it's smart of them to start to invest in hosts like us that are committed to doing this at a very high level. Let's talk about the quality piece, because I think that this was the biggest takeaway. Where's Airbnb headed? What do hosts need to know?
For Airbnb to win in the short-term rental space, one of the biggest things that they are running against is trust of the platform, right? Especially with Gen Zers. And that's like a huge new travel market entering into the market. They still don't really have trust of the platform, right? Because they don't really know the quality that they're going to go into. So Airbnb is essentially competing with the trust of like a Marriott, right? You know the quality of the Marriott when you go to check in, and everyone knows that. You know exactly what you're going to get. That's their biggest competitor, is trust of their platform. So the way that they want to improve that is really incentivizing hosts to improve quality of their hosting and what they call merchandising, which is like your listing, how your listing is presented. From photos to descriptions to your reviews to your response times, all of that. So they're really, really pushing the quality piece, because I think if they can crack the code on the quality piece, that will start building trust. And then once you have trust of the platform, then you have the ability to just drive more people to use the platform, right? Brian made it really, really clear, and his team made it clear as well, that quality is going to be a huge driver for the most successful hosts on the platform. He was saying, like 4.8 is great, but like your threshold should be 4.9 or higher. That kind of blew me away, kind of hear that, because I always thought like 4.9 or higher is like really for the mom and pops or the individual hosts that you can have really hands-on with your listings. But there were people in that room that had hundreds and hundreds of listings in multiple markets, and they were operating at a 4.9 and above. So it is possible at scale to drive that, but it's really, really clear that you have to play at a different level and make that a KPI, a standard that you're going after in your company, because Airbnb will reward you for doing that if you focus on quality and some other aspects of the algorithm, if you will. So quality is going to be everything moving forward.
And transparently, I think we're currently, for our profile, we're at 4.88. So even us, with this intense focus on unreasonable hospitality, on brand, on experience, all of these things, we're just shy of that. And it gives us a higher bar to aim for and to raise the standard to. I think that is potentially going to trigger some people that are listening to this. Like, Airbnb is like trying to control our business again, or trying to make this even harder to be a host. And I think that that's true on one hand, because they have to guard the reputation and the brand that they're building. And if they have hosts on the platform that are consistently getting those 1, 2, 3-star reviews, they're not going to be able to operate, or at least not as profitably on the platform, it sounds like, in the future. So if you are also below that bar and you're listening, this is your call to arms. This is your chance to double down on unreasonable hospitality, on operations, and on brand building, because all of those things influence the reviews that your guests are leaving you at the end of the day.
That's the thing that has to change in the host mind right now, and the bigger operators as well, is like quality. For Freewyld Foundry, we get a lot of applications for companies that are doing a lot of bookings. They have a lot of listings, and then we look at their Airbnb profile and it's like a 4.6. And Brian, right away, he's like, you should never be at 4.6. It goes back to what we're saying. You have to operate at a high level, because ultimately that impacts the trust of the traveler using the platform. Right. And really, at the end of the day, it just makes us better operators. If you can drive your profile to a 4.9 or higher. And again, I don't care how many listings that you have. I met somebody there that had hundreds of listings in multiple markets, and he was operating at a 4.9 and above. I think it was like a 4.95 or something like that. Right. And I was asking him, like, how do you do that? He's like, relentless hospitality. We're obsessed with details. We're obsessed with connecting with the guests. We're obsessed with over delivering the experience, communicating through it. He's like, he invests a lot of money into it, into his team and training, but they're operating at that level. So getting new properties is not a problem. Booking his properties is not a problem. It's a lot of work, but it's what we want, is to like drive a profitable business. We have to do that. So it made me think through the process of like, okay, we're at a 4.88, which is great. It's awesome, but we only have a handful of listings. Why can't we be above 4.9? Let's get as close to 5-star as possible, especially if these bigger companies are operating like that and they're above 4.9. So it's everything that everybody knows already, but I just wanted to communicate, like, it's super important right now. Airbnb is really pushing quality. You have to own that in your business, and it's going to help you on how you rank on the platform. It's going to help you on how Airbnb invest into you. And that's another big shift, is that they're going to be really, really focusing on helping pro hosts operate really good businesses on their platform by investing in new customer service and account reps and things like that. So there's a lot that's coming out for the pro hosts, and it's really exciting.
I'm super excited. I want to pivot back to that merchandising piece that you mentioned, because this is my wheelhouse. So as you were repeating back to me what you heard from Airbnb, I was like, yes, that's what we've been doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you communicate what is important, or what Airbnb is seeing as important when it comes to listings and merchandising, marketing your properties?
Again, it was really cool to be in the room with Brian, because him and his co-founders at Airbnb, they're designers, right? And that's why Airbnb was so successful in their initial launch, and where they're going now is like they're obsessed with design and the experience, right? They want beautiful listings. The reason why we were able to be in that room is because our listings look amazing. Our quality is great, right? It's something that stands out on the platform, and they want to support that, right? So when they talk about merchandising, they are literally looking at your listings, and we should all be looking at our listings as our individual product. It's not a sales page. It's not a website. It's not just a marketplace where you post up a few photos. It's like you have to be obsessed with detail in how your properties are being presented on that platform, right? It's everything that we talk about. He made it really, really clear that having beautiful photos will not only impact the algorithm, but it does correlate to higher conversions and bookings from guests, right? It's very clear. Looked at a portfolio the other day that applied for RPM. When I was talking to the host, the photos, like he took them all with his cell phone, with his iPhone. I'm like, dude, you have beautiful properties in a beautiful area. Just invest into it. He's like, it's expensive and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, you have to invest into this. And I forget the exact stats, but their head of marketing and branding, two separate individuals, they were talking about this on the impact that good photos have financially on listings versus average photos, right? And investing in people who understand how to take real estate focused photography, angles, colors, all of that. And by the way, if anybody needs it, Airbnb has a collection of 2,500 approved photographers. I think it's airbnb.com/photography. So if you punch that in, you'll be able to find someone who does this professionally. So the merchandising is everything from your title to your photos, the description, using all the little features, the whole thing. Again, it's everything that we've heard, but it's been solidified that at Airbnb, you will rank higher, and they have the data to show that people will open your listing and convert at a higher level if you focus on how do you present and sell each individual product that you have. As pro hosts, that's how we have to look at it. If you have 200 listings, you have 200 products, right? And you have to individually merchandise those individual products in a way that will convert the highest on the platform.
Something that's been working really well for us is our photos don't just show the property and the amenities and the features, but we've been very intentional about adding in photography that literally shows the experience. It shows people in the experience even. And we've been recommending to all of our RPM clients the same. It's invest in influencers, invest in creators, invest in people that can add this emotional aspect to your product, because that's what sells stays. Do an audit of your listings. Have somebody else look at them with fresh eyes. That can be a really great exercise as well. And ask yourself if your photos, captions, everything Are they selling the experience, or are they just selling the beds and the layout and the hot tub? Because there's a clear difference in how those are presented.
Yeah, that's exactly what they talked about in their marketing. So at Airbnb, they're spending tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars on advertising. They're talking about like how they're partnering with micro influencers and the content that they're creating. Brian literally said it himself that they're investing into showing the experience that you're going to have at the property. So you and I have talked about this multiple times on the podcast. If we're noticing it on the level that we're at, and Brian Chesky, the CEO of Airbnb, is communicating that back to us of like, that's exactly what Airbnb company is doing, is investing in photography and videos of the experience that you're going to have at the property. We all need to be doing that. Like, we can't ignore that anymore. And if you can't lead that yourself, invest into content creators or the professional that knows how to do this, and just invest in the money, because it's going to impact your listings dramatically. If Brian Chesky is telling you to do it, you got to do it, right? It's working for them. It'll work for you. You know, Brian said, one of the last things that he said to us was, if he wasn't the founder of Airbnb and he had to start over today as a pro host, what he would do, I literally almost stood up and started cheering because I felt like he was talking directly to us. He's like, I would invest into creating a brand forward hospitality company that invests in unique experiences, unique properties, right? Something that would stand out, something that is different from just heads and beds. He's like, those days are just over on Airbnb, because it's not what Airbnb wants, it's what the traveler wants, right? So he's like, the listings that are unique, the listings that are focused on quality, focused on design. And he literally said, we are the company, we're the product that helps people disconnect from technology. Like, he's literally saying that. He's like, we can help people create memories. That's the whole point of this. So invest in beautiful properties with unique design forward, and obsession over quality. So it's exactly what we're building. And I almost stood up. I'm like, that's what we're doing at Freewyld. And actually, a handful of people who know Freewyld came up to us afterwards and mentioned that. I was like, hell yeah, we're on the right path here. First off, it's crazy that, you know, we had this vision, what was that, 4 or 5 years ago, that this is where the industry was leading. And now we're here, right? Like, where Brian Chesky is saying, like, you guys have to invest in beautiful properties, beautiful listings, obsession on design, obsession on quality, and creating memories where we can help people forget about all the technology and all the stuff and be present in those travels. And I'm like, okay, we're here. Time for Freewyld, but for everybody else, it's like, for the property managers, say no to the crappy listings just because you want more listings. It's not about the listing game anymore. It's about finding these properties that are going to outperform on the platform, that are unique, be obsessed with design, be obsessed with quality.
It was such a strong vote for wild mode, and just another reminder to double down on that brand message that we've crafted. Love hearing that. And we're seeing more and more of that, like, confirmation every day just play out in the wider business context, because businesses are getting more and more embedded and entrenched in AI. We're talking to AI voices half the time when we're calling customer service. Like, that's happening. That trend is massive. And we, as experience providers, get to give people the antidote, or the, what's the word? Like, the opposite of that. We get to remind them what it means to be human and to connect with fellow humans. Just dying when you were telling me that earlier.
I was freaking out. I was like, stop everything you're going to say. Let's talk about that only, because he was on a whole bunch of other stuff. But it felt really good to hear that. And this is what we preach to our RPM clients over and over again. It's not about the listing game. Say no to all the busy stuff and find properties and property owners, or if you're an investor, really invest into beautiful things. He made it really clear too. It's not about being expensive. They're really challenging the cost of Airbnb. And let's talk about that. He's like, it's not about being luxury expensive listings, right? He's like, you can be budget, but do it in a way where your quality is outperforming everybody else that's in your marketplace, right? Do it in a way where your properties look good and are presented well. And they showed some listings of just like a regular Airbnb, if you will. It's not like Freewyld where we're obsessed with detail on design, but it was very clean and put together nicely, really good quality materials, things like that. And it was super simple, but they were outperforming their market because it was merchandised well and it was unique to what that market was in. Preaching to everybody here, say no to the standard listings and start investing into unique things.
Let's talk about the cost aspect, because you got some really interesting insights about the next wave of travel demand. So Airbnb mentioned that it's Gen Z, which we already mentioned, Latinos, and surrounding events. Those were kind of the key highlights that they shared. Can you speak to that part and how to reach those types of travelers that are going to be the next drivers of demand and revenue?
Gen Z, it's huge right now. Is like they're traveling more than millennials, right? And millennials travel a lot. They are traveling in groups. They're looking for the unique properties. They're finding them on TikTok and Instagram and now ChatGPT, which is a whole other thing to talk about. But Gen Zs, they're not fully trusted of the Airbnb platform. And that's why they don't go to Airbnb to find the listings. And that's why they go to like TikTok, Instagram, and ChatGPT to find experience. They're typing in like, beautiful, unique cabin in the mountains near LA, right? And then Freewyld will pop up and it'll drive them back to Airbnb, right? So Airbnb is investing into these platforms. They're investing into influencers. They're investing into ads. They're investing into targeting the Gen Z population, right? And what's really unique about the Gen Z population is that they're traveling more frequently. They're looking for those unique stays. They're doing a lot more drive to than like long hauls, like jumping on a plane, going to Italy, right? Or whatever. They're staying local. They're driving to the destination, which again aligns with what we're doing with Freewyld. But they're also traveling in groups. So group stays is really, really big for Gen Zs, but they're very price conscious. So very, very price conscious. You have to like find this middle ground of being able to attract in this new age of travel demand and have these beautiful, unique properties, but do it in a cost-effective way, right? And Sean Bruner from Avant Stay, they noticed this with their stays. They do big, beautiful homes for groups. The way that they market is not the cost for the entire property. They have that, but they also have cost per person per night, or cost per person, I think it is.
Yeah.
Right. So they can show like, hey, we can fit 17 people here and it's X amount of dollars per person for this trip. So now he's able to tap into these Gen Z travelers that are looking for that traveling a whole bunch of people. And it becomes a bit more doable than seeing this huge one number. Right. Mm-hmm. So Gen Zs are huge. Alongside that is US Latinos. So the US Latino community is a huge driver right now for Airbnb. And those two groups, Airbnb was saying, is going to drive a majority of travel demand here in the States, Canada, and Mexico now and into the near future. US Latino, what Airbnb was communicating is they travel more with families. So they are looking for bigger groups. Same thing, no planes, trying to drive to the destination. And it's very similar, price conscious, right? But those two groups are going to drive the majority of the demand over the next few years. So for us, like that's going to be interesting to understand, like how do we start switching our marketing to attract in Gen Z, from LA and San Diego. The marketing side, like I think just messaging and like the content creators we work with and all of that, and like promoting more of the group village stay versus the individual listing will be really popular. And then for the US Latino community, it's now really focusing on like, how do we position our merchandising to communicate better in Spanish? Right? How do we develop a team who natively speaks Spanish, right? And then start promoting the larger properties as well. So I'm excited about it. It's cool to know that. And it's cool to like direct our marketing towards that direction.
I'm having so many takeaways as well. For a multitude of reasons, we've actually been growing our team in Latin America. That's going to serve us well. And especially being in Southern California, I'm actually surprised that we haven't put a bigger focus on this yet. And I'm clocking it in my brain to do this soon, but we should have a Spanish version of our website. That would make a ton of sense for us. And then the big thing, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. This is a small little rabbit hole, but I thought this was really important to know. We have it on our listings. We preach it to our RPM clients. We had an account rep sit down and go through all of our listings. And she was like, hey, this is some of the most beautiful listings I've ever seen. But you have to be very, very careful with emojis in the descriptions and in the photos and in the title, because Airbnb, they translate all of their websites. So when they translate to a different language, those emojis can screw up the translation and it'll look terrible. And they're like, we see a huge drop off on those, right? So that just popped up. I wanted to share that because we should look at the translation, like the Spanish translation of our Airbnb listings, and see if that happens. I thought that was a nice little insight.
Yeah, that's a great takeaway. And then in terms of Gen Z, the big marketing shift that's been happening over the last couple of years is a move towards authenticity. So when Eric and I were becoming young adults and we were the primary consumers, Instagram was just full of these highly curated, beautiful photography grids. Today, that type of content does horribly. It's awful. Like, you might as well not even invest in creating that content because it doesn't resonate with today's consumer. Today's consumer, especially Gen Z, values authenticity. So partnering with influencers and creators, real humans that can show the experience and the product is what's working right now. And I think it's so interesting to underline. We mentioned it, but even Airbnb, with their millions and millions of dollars of marketing budget, they're choosing to work with what they call micro influencers. So to them, the definition is somebody that has less than 100,000 followers. And for me, I'm taking away, especially being a smaller brand, is we don't have to find the people that have 500K or 600, 700, 800K followers. You might get more authentic, more resonant content by working with somebody that has 10,000, 20,000 followers when they're super aligned with your local market and are good content creators that speak the Gen Z language, if you will.
Right. I thought that was interesting too, because I haven't heard of Airbnb's campaigns working with influencers. If you go to Airbnb's Instagram page, they have a lot of content up there with influencers, but those influencers do have millions of views, right? So anything that like the platform of Airbnb promotes on their Instagram channel, or Brian, like he just did something about the Japanese market, like Airbnb is expanding in Japan, and they partnered with a couple of influencers there. And I was looking at them, they had a few million followers, right? But what their head of marketing was telling us is when it comes to winning the trust of Gen Z, they're investing in these micro influencers. And they said like around 100,000 up to about 250,000. Like these are everyday people that have really good social media accounts that are hyper focused in travel in certain areas. Airbnb is creating content with them. And then they're also paying the influencers based on bookings, which I thought was really cool. They didn't get into the details of how they're doing it, and that's coming out of Airbnb's fee that they're collecting on that booking. But I thought that was really cool too. And that's something I want us to figure out is like, instead of just paying the influencers or content creators, how do we create an incentive program and a tracking program to where, hey, if you drive to Airbnb or you drive to our direct booking website, we will pay you a percentage of this booking ongoing forever, right? I'll leave that in your department. I don't know the how of it, but I'm like, oh, okay, if Airbnb is doing that, we got to figure out how to do that as well.
We will figure it out.
Yeah, that's a huge thing for them.
I don't want to spend too much time here, but they also highlighted that FIFA 2026 is going to be driving massive demand. I had to look this up because I'm not a big soccer or football follower. This doesn't apply to everybody, but this is happening in June and July of next year of 2026. And if you are in or near any of the cities, I'm going to list them out rapid fire style here, you definitely want to think about opening up your calendar sooner and just paying attention to this massive demand driver. So we have Vancouver, Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Guadalajara, Mexico City, Monterey, Houston, Dallas, Kansas City, Atlanta, Miami, Toronto, Boston, Philadelphia, and New York, New Jersey.
Yeah.
Little pro tip.
Freaking awesome. So let me talk on that. They talked about FIFA a lot. Airbnb is an official partner with FIFA as well for housing, travel. It's a big push for them. These are the main takeaways. One is this is the first time ever that FIFA is in 3 different countries at the same time. So it's never happened before, right? Canada, US, Mexico. What the team was talking about is that it's going to be one of the largest demand drivers starting now on the Airbnb platform and for all these markets, right? So they were encouraging us to open up our calendars now to start promoting for these areas. And what I found was really interesting is like, it's not only the major city that is going to get the impact during the games, but it's also the surrounding areas of those major cities for weeks leading up to FIFA and post FIFA. LA is a great example of this. Like, if it was only impacting LA, why would we care? Right. But he literally said like LA and Palm Springs is going to see a huge bump. Idlewild's right next door to Palm Springs, right? So obviously we can capture that demand for people that are traveling to the States, traveling to LA, that want to see the surrounding area. They'll come in early or they'll leave later to explore. So they're seeing that FIFA is not only going to impact those cities, but it's going to impact the surrounding markets. So they're encouraging us now to open up our calendars. And then, of course, we'll leave it to Jasper's show to maybe talk about like the pricing psychology of how to do that, knowing that you have this huge demand coming. But we're going to start promoting that for Freewyld. We're going to open it up for our RPM clients that are impacted by this. FIFA is going to be a huge push. So if this is in or around the market that you're in, you have to really start leveraging this and opening it up for next year, which is pretty far out, but there's a way to maximize your revenue with the right revenue strategy.
It was funny when you brought this to the team and you were asking Jasper, like, hey, are you guys tracking this yet? And Jasper just laughed at you. He's like, yeah, of course.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, of course. It's part of our strategy already. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Great. Well, I just learned about it. I mean, that goes to the power of it, having someone in the revenue management seat who understands demand and travel and all of that. Plus, he's from Europe and, FIFA is a lot bigger of a deal there than it is here. So it's something that he just personally follows, but he's like, yeah, it's part of our process already. So I was like, hell yeah, let's go.
Yeah, definitely the advantage of having an expert revenue manager who can pay attention to all of these things, regardless if you are a soccer fan or not. We are coming to the end of our time. So just as closing, if you want to win in hospitality as we move into the future, it's not just about listings, it's about designing experiences. And top 3 takeaways are that quality wins and will continue to be a massive driver of both revenue and just overall success. Storytelling sells. So think about the experience holistically, not just your property, not just your place to stay. And that authenticity builds trust. And to lean into authenticity, even when it feels uncomfortable, because that's what today's consumer and traveler is looking for. Anything you want to add to that, Eric?
That's solid. I want to thank the Airbnb team for putting this on and like inviting us, making us part of it. And, I think part of this podcast is we're going to really push to get more of the Airbnb team members and executives on this podcast, teach us and talk to us about this stuff, because they really do want to connect with the pro host community. And I think a majority of the listeners are part of that pro host community. I definitely recommend to everyone who's listening too, is to reach out to your market manager. And if you don't have a market manager, ask Airbnb to connect you with one if you're at the size to do so. It is coming up. They do it once a year where Airbnb will assess their markets and look at their hosts and assign market managers. So now's the time to either ask for a new one if you're not working with one, or, build that relationship, or ask for a market manager if you're a pro host, because it's going to be really, really helpful. I sat down with a market manager and she went through our stuff, gave me a lot of amazing feedback, and they're really investing into supporting the professional host, the pro host community. So look out for that. There's a lot of cool tools that we can't talk about on the podcast that are going to be coming out in the next little while. So I'm very, very excited about that. And then I'm curious too, for everyone who's listening, reach out to us. Let us know who you want to hear from. Our goal is to eventually get Brian Chesky on this podcast. We're going to get clear on how we're going to do that and when we can do that. But I'm pretty positive if we build enough value and this podcast grows and we continue to be authentic and help in the community, we can make that happen. So definitely need everyone's support and
speaking
love
that into
for
existence.
making that happen. Yeah.
Yeah. One way that you can support right now that just takes a moment would be to leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast player that you're listening to this on. That would be massively helpful. And thank you so much in advance. Thank you so much for listening to Get Paid for Your Pad. Eric, this was incredible. I learned so much, both from our internal team reflections, and then I'm so glad that we got this out to the industry as quickly as possible.
It was fun. Thanks, Kaye. Thanks, everybody.
Get paid for your pad. Get paid for your pad. Get paid for your pad.